questions about George?
Yeah. Beth, during your financial reporting, you often make reference to variances as compared to last year's actuals versus this year's actuals. But I noticed that in our reports all the time, the variances is the budget, which I fully understand. And so a question maybe for you, the Finance Committee, should we be getting written reports that also show comparisons to actual, or is it sufficient enough just to get them in the context of when you make your report on a monthly basis?
We'll certainly take your guidance on that. Usually when I'm referring to last year, I'm looking at sort of macroeconomic data. We report versus budget because there's certain, looking at last year's budget line, for every line you would have to address the specific circumstances of that. But we could certainly do that. When we do our budget, and we do a monthly budget, we actually, there's a lot of work that goes behind that, and we don't just take the budget, you know, it's $1,000 for the year divided by 12. We look at what the historical payment rates have been, so we think that's a good comparison, and it's why I go back to what the underlying assumptions were in the budget, what the growth in the payroll tax, what growth in revenues underlie the budget that has been approved, and then how we're measuring up against that. But I'm happy to do whatever the board would like to see, but we could discuss it in the Finance Committee.
One thing I would offer is when I think about this, and particularly if I put myself into your shoes, you know, we've gone through a very difficult time with you all on adopting the budget with, you know, $31+ million reductions and so on. And that is, just as Beth said, built on a whole lot of assumptions, both on the expenditure side, but also in the revenue. The value of it being against budget is you get to see whether or not, you know, we're kind of predicting, did we predict that right, or is it likely we're going to have to come in and do additional reductions, or is it in fact showing better performance? So if I were in your shoes, I would want the budget, because that kind of says, hold it, we kind of set a benchmark. Are we kind of doing against it? Last year, there are so many variables. I mean, if you think about ridership, it doesn't have the green line in it, and we will have that. It obviously has a lot of the other kind of reductions from just because of the economy. But we can do it any way you want. But I think that, my guess is that's the one that you can tell whether something's starting to happen. And particularly with Beth's comments about, you know, where does payroll tax revenue really look like? Because that's the most key element here. Is it really kind of holding or not? Unemployment and so on.
Now, I'm okay with the way that we receive it. The reason I just do that is because I know that when you talk, I tend to try to equate to what it is that you're saying, and it's not there. But no, I'm comfortable with it.
Maybe I should be more clear.
No, I'm comfortable. No, you're doing a great job.
George?
Great job.
I'm sorry. I didn't like that job.
No.
George.
Okay. Two things. One is a question and one is a comment. You spoke about lift and the decline in ridership. I would like to think that is because we're training people and they are now beginning to use our other services.
As a county member, you can say
that's the comment.
And a comment on that is probably is correct for a part of the decline, because we are seeing that costs are declining faster than ridership. So, and another trend we will continue to watch.
I'll carry that message to Kat. Number two is something I didn't understand, and that's under your assets, you show the restricted assets held primarily for capital projects.
Yes.
But you also show it down in your non-current liabilities. Why? I'm sorry, deferred capital project revenue.
So that we actually have a requirement that if we don't spend all that money for the project, we have to return it to the state. So which won't happen obviously, but on the accounting side, we'll record the revenue associated with that money as we spend it. So you'll see those dollars will match each other on the balance sheet as we spend it.
All right.
Lynn, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Beth, your barometer's pretty good, too.
I wish I
I wish it was more positive,
Yeah.
because none of us want to have to face what we faced since I've been on the board too, and it's, it was negative to all of us to have to cut services and do the things we had to do. I share your comment though, because our barometer is the freight. If we move and freight's way down, it's not a good sign, and we don't see the upturn. Having said that, when the state passed it, they will increase for us. When will that show some effects, even though the employment's down?
The payroll tax increase that the state gave us authority to implement needs to be approved by the board. And I believe the earliest that could be would be in 2010, and the board has to come to the conclusion that implementing the increase would have no adverse effect on the local economy. So that will be back before you when you feel it's appropriate and when you can make that assertion.
Very frankly, it's hard to think that that's before 11 or 12. 11 at the very earliest, and I think more likely 12. Because there are two findings that the statute requires. One is that the economy has recovered sufficient to be able to do it based on both income and employment. So it's hard to be able to get to there very quickly, we think. And one last thing, I think you all are aware, but that statute provides, as it did in the 2003 statutory change as well, that is to be phased in over 10 years with no more than 0.02% in any given year, but phased in over 2 years. So if it's in the 12, it really goes into 12 and then completes in 22. So it's a future issue, not a very immediate relief issue.
Any other questions of Beth?
One comment, and that's, Fred, I'd like to say to you and staff, job well done on the green line. Also, I would say to the board, if you ever get a chance, take a trip on it. I mean, it's really, it's kind of nice, especially around 3:30, to be on the Max line and look at all that traffic. It's kind of stalled out there. I know what Beaverton goes through. So,
I-205, the parking lot.
Thank you, Beth.